At 4:22 in the afternoon on September 12, 2008, a commuter train engineer named Robert Sanchez sent a text message. 22 seconds later, his Metrolink train ran a red signal at Topanga Canyon and hit a Union Pacific freight train head-on near Chatsworth, California. 25 people died. The engineer died. The locomotive telescoped 52 feet into the lead passenger car. The NTSB found that Sanchez had sent or received 57 text messages during his 2 shifts that day. His last message, sent 22 seconds before the collision, was a promise to a teenage railroad fan that he would be allowed to operate the locomotive later that evening. Positive train control would have stopped that train automatically before it reached the signal. The NTSB had been recommending mandatory automatic train control since 1969. That is 39 years before Congress acted on Chatsworth, and 51 years before the system was actually running on every required route mile. In those 51 years, the NTSB investigated 154 accidents that a working PTC system would have prevented. Those accidents killed 305 people and injured 6,883 others. The agency issued 82 safety recommendations related to the technology. Each one was a report that said, in some form, this did not have to happen. This video is about what happened in those 51 years, what the technology does, why it took that long, what it cost, and what was lost while the industry argued about the bill. Here is where it starts. Positive train control is a system that monitors where a train is, how fast it is going, and what authority it has to be there, and intervenes automatically if any of those 3 things are wrong. It uses GPS to determine the locomotive's position, a continuously updated database of speed limits and signal states, and a 220 megahertz radio link to a back-office server that tracks the movement authorities issued by dispatchers. If the train is approaching a red signal and the engineer has not responded, PTC applies the brakes. If the train is going too fast for the curve ahead, PTC applies the brakes. If a maintenance crew is working on the track and the train is moving into the work zone, PTC applies the brakes. The engineer does not have to do anything. The engineer might not even know it has happened until the train is already slowing down. The system is designed to catch 4 specific categories of accident: train-to-train collisions caused by running signals, overspeed derailments, unauthorized movement into work zones, and movement through a switch lined incorrectly. These 4 categories do not cover every possible rail accident. They cover the ones that human error causes most consistently. PTC is not a guarantee of safety across all failure modes. It is a targeted solution to a specific class of human error, and within that class, it works. It does not prevent mechanical failures. It did not prevent the East Palestine derailment in 2023, which was caused by a bearing failure rather than a signal violation or overspeed event. PTC was operational on that line and was not cited as a factor. The distinction matters because PTC is sometimes described as a complete safety solution, which it is not. The Chatsworth collision was in the first category. Robert Sanchez missed a red signal. PTC would have seen the signal state in the back-office database, compared it to the train's position, and applied the brakes before the train reached the point of no return. The 25 people who died on that September afternoon died because that comparison was not being made. The first time the NTSB recommended something like positive train control, the year was 1969. 2 Penn Central commuter trains had collided head-on in Darien, Connecticut, in August of that year. 4 people died and 43 were injured. The NTSB recommended that the FRA study the feasibility of requiring automatic train control at points where passenger trains meet other trains. The recommendation went into a file. It came back out in 1990 when the NTSB added automatic train protection to its first ever most wanted list. It came back out again on February 16, 1996, when an Amtrak Capital Limited running at 87 miles per hour struck a Maryland rail commuter train that had pulled onto the main track from a side siding at Silver Spring, Maryland. 11 people died. The Amtrak engineer had a clear signal. The commuter train had moved into his path. A working PTC system tracking both trains in real time would have seen the conflict before it materialized. The NTSB said so directly. It recommended that CSX, which owned the track, install PTC on the corridor. CSX estimated the cost at more than $300 million for that segment alone, and argued that the technology did not yet exist in a form that could meet the mandate. The NTSB disagreed. Congress did not act. It came back out in 2000. Each time, the industry submitted cost estimates that made implementation appear economically unjustifiable. Each time, Congress deferred. Between 1969 and 2008, the NTSB investigated accident after accident that fell into the categories PTC was designed to prevent. The recommendations accumulated. The deaths accumulated. The legislation did not move. The pattern was consistent. After each accident, the agency pointed to its existing stack of recommendations and noted that the technology to prevent what had just happened had been available and recommended for years. The industry submitted cost-benefit analyses that made implementation appear economically unjustifiable. Congress deferred. The political attention passed. It passed every time until Chatsworth. What changed in 2008 was not the technology and not the cost. What changed was that Robert Sanchez sent a text message 22 seconds before he killed 25 people, and the cell phone records were there to prove it. Senators Dianne Feinstein and Barbara Boxer of California led the legislative effort that became the Rail Safety Improvement Act, moving it through Congress in 34 days. The bill that had spent years in committee passed because the evidence of what distraction in a locomotive cab produces was specific enough that the industry cost argument could not survive it. The mandate was signed into law October 16, 2008. The Rail Safety Improvement Act of 2008 mandated positive train control on all lines that carried passenger traffic or transported materials classified as poison inhalation hazards, with a statutory deadline of December 31, 2015. The railroad industry had 7 years to implement a system that the NTSB had been recommending for 39. The industry's initial cost estimate was approximately $10 billion. The actual cost, when full compliance was finally declared in December 2020, was closer to $15 billion. The AAR described PTC as the single largest regulatory expenditure ever imposed on the industry by the FRA. That description is probably accurate. It is also a description of what it costs to make a specific category of human error impossible. The 2015 deadline was missed almost universally. Every major railroad applied for an extension. Congress granted one to December 31, 2018. Railroads that could demonstrate sufficient progress were eligible for a further extension to December 31, 2020. The FRA issued extensions. The NTSB kept its most wanted designation active. The accidents that PTC would have prevented kept happening. In May 2015, the engineer of Amtrak Train 188 was 32 years old and had been with the railroad for 3 years. He was running the Northeast Corridor from Washington to New York, one of the busiest rail corridors in the country, where trains operate at up to 150 miles per hour on segments designed for high speed. Around 9:21 p.m., approaching a curve outside Philadelphia that had a posted speed limit of 50 miles per hour, his train was moving at 106 miles per hour. Data recorders showed the speed had been increasing in the 65 seconds before the derailment. The NTSB found evidence he may have been distracted by radio communications about another train that had been struck by a projectile earlier that evening. 8 people died. More than 200 were injured. PTC had been partially installed on that segment, but had not been activated. It was not yet required to be. The system that would have applied the brakes automatically before the train entered the curve at that speed was installed on the locomotive. It was not running. The 2015 compliance deadline was still 8 months away, and every major railroad was already preparing to miss it. In December 2017, an Amtrak train derailed near DuPont, Washington, on the inaugural run of a new service. 3 people died, and more than 50 were injured. The train was traveling at 78 miles per hour in a 30 mph zone. PTC had been installed on that segment, but had not been activated. The NTSB determined the probable cause was the crew's failure to reduce speed approaching the curve. PTC, had it been active, would have applied the brakes automatically. The system was there. It was not running. If you are finding this useful, hit subscribe. We cover stories like this every week. Here is what $15 billion actually bought, and why the answer is almost impossible to see. Full PTC implementation was declared complete on December 31, 2020, 12 years after the mandate, 5 years past the original deadline. At an industry-wide cost, the FRA estimated at approximately $15 billion. Union Pacific alone spent roughly $2.9 billion. CSX spent approximately $2.4 billion. The 4 largest Class I freight railroads accounted for nearly all of the required 57,536 route miles that fell under the mandate. The technology the railroads built is not a simple upgrade to existing signal systems. It is a parallel layer of intelligence that runs alongside the dispatcher's authority system, the signal system, and the locomotive's own controls. Each locomotive requires an onboard computer, a GPS receiver, and radio equipment capable of communicating with the back-office server that tracks every train on the network. Each segment of track requires accurate digital mapping of every speed limit, every signal, every curve and grade that affects safe operating speed. Every dispatch authorization has to be transmitted to the locomotive in real time and matched against the train's GPS-verified position. When the system detects a discrepancy, a train moving faster than the speed limit for its current location, or approaching a signal it does not have authority to pass, it issues an audible warning to the engineer. If the engineer does not respond within a defined interval, the brakes apply automatically. The engineer does not need to be consulted. The train does not need permission to slow down. The interoperability problem is what made implementation so difficult and expensive. North American freight railroads share track extensively. A Union Pacific locomotive might run on BNSF track for 100 miles in a single trip. A Metrolink commuter train runs on BNSF and Union Pacific freight track for its entire route. Building a PTC system that works in isolation on one property is manageable. Building one that works seamlessly across property boundaries with different radio frequencies, different back-office architectures, and different signal systems, while keeping a network moving that carries a third of the country's intercity freight. That is the problem that took 12 years and $15 billion to solve. The FRA provided approximately $716 million in grants and nearly $1 billion in loans to help commuter railroads that could not self-fund the transition. Since full implementation was declared in December 2020, PTC has been operating on the required route miles without a major headline. That is not a coincidence. Every automatic brake application that catches a signal violation or an overspeed approach happens quietly, without any of the passengers on the train knowing that anything occurred. The engineer sees a display indication. The brakes engage. The hazard is avoided. The train continues. NTSB Chairman Robert Sumwalt, who had investigated 36 transportation accidents over his career, said at the January 2021 closing of the PTC recommendations that they would silently mark their success with every train crash prevented, every life saved by this technology. The success of PTC, by design, produces no evidence of itself. The accidents it stops are the accidents that do not happen, which leave no record, no investigation report, no most wanted designation. That is the measure of what the technology is worth, and it is a measure defined almost entirely by absence.